with whatever he wants.
That's not true. If you've heard Marjorie Taylor Greene,
she's gone. She's resigned.
Yeah, she's been pushing. There have been a lot of Republicans pushing for the transparency.
And he threatened her with a primary in response to it.
Yeah, but Trump actually signed the Transparency Act, and all the files are out there. And there's going to be...
He didn't want to. He was forced to.
Yeah, but it's out there. It's out there. And I think what matters more is our leaders and the principles and having justice for the victims, and then asking the question, actually, who is Epstein working for?
Do you think that
nobody's asking that question? And how many more Epsteins are there out there? And I think that's on a lot of people's minds.
Do you think Donald Trump cares about these victims?
I think Donald Trump does care. I think the way he expresses himself at times is unfortunate.
It wasn't the only controversial thing he said this week, of course, because he posted a video to millions of followers, ending with a clip, Donald Trump, set to The Lion Sleeps Tonight, with the Obamas depicted as dancing apes. Would you condemn that video as racist?
I know that Joe Biden was in there as an ape as well, and I think...
Yes, but he's white.
I think, look, it's terrible. It's not, we shouldn't be posting things like that. But as he said, it wasn't him. He's got a big group that's posting, and we know he's got a quirky sense of humor.
Quirky, invoking Jim Crow stereotypes that have been used to justify slavery.
Very quirky. That
decades and decades.
I don't think it was
All right, pause it right here, because this is the moment everything falls apart. A Republican commentator is asked the simplest question imaginable. Was this racist? Not was it misunderstood? Not was it poorly timed? Just was it racist? And instead of a straight answer, you get hesitation, deflection, and mental gymnastics designed to protect Donald Trump at all costs. This isn't confusion, this isn't nuance, this is deliberate denial. And once you see how far she's willing to go to excuse this, you start to realize this isn't about defending a video. It's about defending a pattern.
Nora Lee Knotson's Republican commentator and founder of Knotson Advisors. She joins us now in the studio. Nora, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Could you just explain that? I mean, there are people, and I've spoken to quite a few this week, who've asked me exactly this question. These Epstein files are shaking our politics, and they're a big story in America, but it doesn't seem that there are so many people paying a political price.
Well, if we think about the way Trump ran his campaign in 2024, and when he was asked about the Epstein files, he said he was pro releasing the files. And we know Trump is not somebody that's a pure man. He's never run on that sort of platform. And Trump himself is anti-establishment, anti the elite. So this whole exposure of the Epstein files and the lengths that it goes to for the people involved in high power, whether it's in banking, private equity, entertainment world, or within politics itself, people that were high up in Clinton's administration being involved. This plays into Trump's whole narrative of the establishment and trying to get to the... Yeah, but let's be clear. There are separate issues here. There are people who had a relationship with Epstein, nothing that was criminal. And then there are people who were involved in passing sensitive information so he could trade off of it. And there were people involved in sexual misconduct.
But Trump's relationship with Epstein does rather imply that he's part of that establishment that he decries.
Actually, if you look at Trump's relationship, it ended in about 2004. And Epstein...
But he's part of that world.
He is not part of the sexual misconduct. So there are a lot of people who are part of
the elite world of wealth and power.
No, but it's the rot that's within a lot of these institutions. And Trump's platform was tried to restore the public trust in institutions.
Although Trump is saying he wants to move on. He thinks everybody should move on from the Epstein files.
I don't think everybody's going to move on, because I think what's really crucial here is the public trust. And it's what are our principles and values, and when will there be justice for the victims? And if it's like, I ask, how many other Epsteins are there out there controlling our politicians and people in high power?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the victims. I mean, when asked this week by CNN's Caitlin Collins what the president had to say to the survivors and victims of Jeffrey Epstein's horrific abuse, Donald Trump responded by asking her why she doesn't smile more and attacked her for her ratings. What do you think that says about the president's attitude to sexual violence?
I think that was a tactless response, but I think what you're seeing within America on both Republican side and Democratic side is people want answers. We know Trump's style is not
That's not
palatable
okay, though, is it?
for a lot of people. And I agree with you. It's a very tactless response.
I mean, it's not just tactless, is it? It's profoundly offensive. If you were listening to, if you were one of those victims watching that, you'd be looking at him and going, my president, when asked explicitly what he has to say to me, started to talk about why a woman didn't smile more and why her ratings weren't better.
Well, clearly.
Notice how everything is always described as unfortunate, tactless, or poorly phrased, but never actually wrong. When Trump mocks a reporter asking about abuse victims, it's just his style. When he dodges accountability, it's the media's fault. And when people are genuinely hurt, especially women and minorities, suddenly intent matters more than impact. This is the defense playbook on full display, lowering expectations so far that basic decency becomes optional, and then acting offended when anyone points it out.
As we know in the U.S.,
okay?
a lot plays out in the press, and he actually approved the Transparency Act for all the files to be
If
released.
our prime minister did that, he'd be out that day because it would be so grossly offensive.
And I understand that. But I think what's even more concerning is that our prime minister here, knowing that there was a relationship between Mandelson and Epstein after he was convicted of
That's more
sexual
concerning. Wait, that's more concerning than Trump having a relationship over many years with Jeffrey Epstein.
Trump was not involved in any sexual misconduct that we know of with
Well, nor was
anybody.
Keir Starmer, nor was Peter Mandelson, as far as we know.
Peter Mandelson was involved in defying the Secrecy Act in giving insider information. I used to work on the trading floor. I'd go straight to jail if I traded on inside information. That's a crime.
Well, we should be careful because at the moment...
No, I know. He's not accused of
investigation.
anything. But if that happened, that raises huge concerns about not only the judgment of Keir Starmer, but other people around.
But you're saying it's worse that Keir Starmer appointed a guy who had a relationship with Epstein than it is for Donald Trump, who had a relationship with Epstein for years and years.
He appointed...
We can't seriously be saying that Keir Starmer is in a worse position than Donald Trump over this short.
That's not what I'm saying. I think that's what you're saying. What I'm saying is I understand that the way the UK responds to scandal is very different from the way the US responds to scandal.
Yeah, well, we do respond. But your party, the Republican Party, has decided to basically let Donald Trump get away with whatever he wants.
That's not true. If you've heard Marjorie Taylor Greene,
she's gone. She's resigned.
Yeah, she's been pushing. There have been a lot of Republicans pushing for the transparency.
And he threatened her with a primary in response to it.
Yeah, but Trump actually signed the Transparency Act, and all the files are out there. And there's going to be...
He didn't want to. He was forced to.
Yeah, but it's out there. It's out there. And I think what matters more is our leaders and the principles and having justice for the victims, and then asking the question, actually, who is Epstein working for?
Do you think that...
Nobody's asking that question. And how many more Epsteins are there out there? And I think that's on a lot of people's minds.
Do you think Donald Trump cares about these victims?
I think Donald Trump does care. I think the way he expresses himself at times...
It wasn't the only controversial thing he said this week, of course, because he posted a video to millions of followers, ending with a clip, Donald Trump, set to The Lion Sleeps Tonight, with the Obamas depicted as dancing apes. Would you condemn that video as racist?
I know that Joe Biden was in there as an ape as well, and I think...
Yes, but he's white.
I think, look, it's terrible. It's not, we shouldn't be posting things like that. But as he said, it wasn't him. He's got a big group that's posting, and we know he's got a quirky sense of humor.
Quirky, invoking Jim Crow stereotypes that have been used to justify slavery.
Very quirky. That
decades and decades.
I don't think it was intended, and I think it's unfortunate that it came out. So I would agree with you. It's unfortunate that came out.
Well, I wasn't asking whether it was unfortunate. I was asking whether you thought it was racist.
I don't think the implication was meant to be racist. If I'm honest, it was meant to just make a joke. But I would never post a video like that, and I think most people wouldn't be posting videos like that. So it's unfortunate that his team posted that video.
But you're aware of the provenance of that trope about black people being apes?
I'm aware that in the past, yes, there were some issues around that.
Well, you could say that again. It was used by slave traders and segregationists to dehumanize black people and justify lynchings. So do you think it's all right for the President of the United States, who is also president of nearly 50 million black Americans, to be putting out material like that?
And I don't think the intent was that.
Why hasn't he apologized for it, do you think?
I can't answer for Donald Trump. I know he did say, had he seen it, he wouldn't have liked it either. So that's his underway of apologizing, his behind the doorway of apologizing. But we know Trump's not good at apologizing.
Well, the president's press secretary actually initially dismissed it as fake outrage. That's very easy for her to say, isn't it, as a white woman?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that should have never been published, and I think it's unfortunate it did. I think what's more important here right now are the real issues in the world. And if we go back to, Epstein and dealing with
racism, not a real issue. He's the president of the United States.
I'm not saying racism is not an issue. I don't think that was intended. What I'm saying, and I think if you would just hear me out, is that was not intended to be racist.
But it was racist, whether what his intention or otherwise.
Well, as we know, certain people take things different ways, and it's unfortunate that came out and it's been taken off, as far as I know.
This is the point where the entire argument collapses under its own weight. Because the moment you admit you understand the history, the moment you acknowledge that this imagery has been used to dehumanize black people for centuries, intent stops mattering. You don't accidentally recreate one of the most violent racist stereotypes in history and then brush it off as a joke. And listen to how low the bar has been set here. Not leadership, not empathy, not accountability, just the excuse that this is how Trump is. Imagine applying that standard to literally anyone else in power. Imagine excusing a president because apologizing is apparently too much to ask of a grown man. This isn't strength, it's moral cowardice dressed up as loyalty. And the longer this goes on, the clearer it becomes that she knows it's wrong. She just can't bring herself to say it out loud.
Why wouldn't he apologize? I mean, it would mean something so much to those people, black Americans, who find it gross that their president, because he is their president, that he wouldn't just say sorry. It would mean nothing to him, but it would mean everything to them.
I agree. I think it would be great if he could say something like he backpedaled on Afghanistan as well. I think those remarks were terrible as well. But he's slow, unfortunately, to acknowledge those mistakes.
I mean, if children do something wrong, we tell them to apologize because it's the right thing to do. And I'm just so struck that whenever you speak to people who defend the president, they just say, well, he doesn't apologize. Is that okay? We just say, oh, the guy's so unpardonably arrogant that even when he posts videos that depict black people as apes, which is perhaps the worst stereotype and trope that could ever exist, because, as I say, it was literally used to justify slavery for 200 years because people suggested that they weren't really human.
But also Biden was in there as an ape.
Biden was white. But of course it doesn't matter. Like, if you depicted me as an ape, I'm white, so I'm not part of that trope. You're not part of that trope.
Right. But what I'm trying to say is I don't think the intention was that. It's unfortunate.
It's like if someone attacked you or used a trope as you as being a woman, it wouldn't mean the same thing to me because I'm a man. Like, it only works when specific people are targeted for what they're targeted for.
I understand what you're saying. And again, as I'm saying, because it wasn't intended to be racist and it came out, and for many people it will be considered racist, and I think it's unfortunate.
Well, I'll tell you what.
It'd be best just to give an apology.
I agree. Well,
let's move on to bigger issues.
For the benefit of the listeners who won't have heard it or seen it, let's just play the clip so they can.
Here's the reality that keeps getting danced around. When defending Donald Trump requires pretending history doesn't exist, you've already lost the argument. This wasn't a harmless joke, it wasn't edgy humor, and it certainly wasn't accidental. It was a racist trope with centuries of violence behind it. And instead of owning that, we watch someone desperately try to make it acceptable. And that's the real story here. Not just that the video was posted, but that so many people are willing to minimize it, excuse it, and move on like nothing happened. Leadership means knowing when you're wrong. Strength means apologizing. And respect means understanding that some lines don't get crossed, no matter who you are. If the standard for the President of the United States is now, well, he didn't mean it, then that standard is buried underground, and everyone pretending otherwise knows it. Now I want to hear from you. Was this really just unfortunate, or was it exactly what it looked like? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this isn't just about one video, it's about what people are willing to excuse. If accountability still matters to you, this is the conversation to have.